Where's little Tay in 40 years? That's what I want to know. Where's
the
little
White
Tay?
House? Definitely the White House. Where else?
After Kanye's children win, yeah, she's gonna be next.
I mean, that's an interesting thought exercise, though. Like, where do you go down from Donald Trump? I mean, because the progression has to go down, right? We all thought that, because I remember when Bush was president, talking to reporters, Bush used to do this thing where he would carry around a biography of Dean Acheson for weeks and weeks and weeks just to prove to reporters that he could read. And we all used to joke with each other, like, nobody's stupider than this is ever going to be president, right? And now, you look back and Bush is, he's like Einstein compared to Trump.
I had a joke that I did back in my Netflix special from 2005 when Bush was in office, where it was a bunch of people were trying to figure out how dumb people are. And they're like, the only way, there was speculation, like, let's get a smart guy to act dumb. Like, no. You got to get a real dumb guy. Otherwise, we'll never know. You got to have a real dumb guy. And then so they get the real dumb guy and they do a bunch of things. They vote him in a second time. And then someone in the back of the room goes, I think we can go dumber. and this is where we are.
Right.
This is a bit from 2005, but
it's
here
true.
13 years later,
life imitates art.
We went way dumber.
That's right. Right.
Well,
went to 11.
Bush seems super reasonable in comparison to some of the shit that Trump says in terms of like Supreme Court rulings and like there was a Supreme Court ruling that went against Bush's way while he was in office, and he had a really reasonable response. He was like, of course, we're disappointed, but we have to abide by the court and their ruling. And, it was like something you would never hear Trump say.
Yeah.
You'd never hear him say something like that.
No, absolutely. I mean, I look back and Bush seems to me almost like a Scandinavian statesman compared to Donald Trump.
Little Tay. Tell Little Tay, she would go to the White House too. A lot of people did want to go to the White House for the inauguration. Little Tay will go. She'll go. I
mean, the White House it's gonna look like the White House in Idiocracy when she's in there, right? I mean, it's gonna be terrible. But
well, that was a weird time too, right? Like during the inauguration when no celebrities wanted to go, and they had to dig out like really weird, like real fucking on the outskirts celebrities.
Oh, it was and it was the same thing with the RNC. I remember I covered the RNC and they had to have Scott Baio do one of the first day speeches.
Scott Baio's a huge supporter.
Right, but I mean,
I know Scott. I know him personally.
Yeah,
he's a very nice guy.
I'm sure he is.
Super nice guy.
Yeah. But that was their A list for the Republican National Convention, and
outside of like the Hannitys and those type fellas.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's just weird. It just seems like everything's off. Like we skip dimensions. We're like jolted over into like this parallel world where things just don't seem like, at least things used to make sense. Like you'd be disappointed that this guy won, or you'd be disappointed that the country was doing this, or that we were invading Iraq, or whatever it was. But it would kind of seem like the world.
Right. Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about before. I mean, previously, like the entertainment industry, politics was tightly controlled by a small group of cigar-chumping people who sat in the back room, and in both parties, they carefully outlined a sort of narrow range of acceptable political opinions. And in one party, you could be all the way up to, somebody like Ron Paul, but they tended to put somebody like George Bush as the candidate. But there was no directly appealing to the electorate and asking them who they wanted to be the candidate. I mean, Donald Trump is really the first internet president. He completely bypassed that entire oligarchy. He didn't have to go through, the priesthood to get to be president, which on the one hand is evidence of a good thing, because it's actually more democratic than the system was before, where it was pretty much closed to everybody except for a few people who paid their dues through this system. But Trump just by being famous and just by attracting media attention, he was able to bypass all the usual tests and bypass the party's decision-making process, and he got to be president. But he's like Little Tay, right? I mean, he just represents the dumber side of us as opposed to the more enlightened side of us. So it's hard to know what to think about it. I mean, when I was covering it, I thought, on the one hand, this is evidence that the electorate is breaking away from being told who to vote for. On the other hand, the first time they take that freedom out for a test drive, this is what they pick. I mean, I don't know.
Well, at least it throws a giant monkey wrench into the gears.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly done that.
Yeah.
But what the result of that will be is
yet to be determined.
Yet to be determined. Yeah. I mean, it could be the end of civil. I mean, I said this before that when I was covering the Trump run, part of me wanted to write it as a comedy. Like, all the early stories were like highly comic. I was trying to write about the funny aspect of it. And then after he became president, it's like, well, this is either the funniest thing that's ever happened in America, or it's the end of civilization, right? Does that make it funnier that it's the end of civilization? I don't know. I mean, you're a comic, so I should ask you about this.
I don't know either. It's all depending upon how it plays out, right? I mean, civilizations have absolutely fallen in the past.
Right.
This idea that civilization won't fall, in my opinion, is akin to the people that live on the Big Island thinking that the volcano won't erupt again.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Right? It happened. It's going to happen again.
Yeah.
Like, so our ideas about maintaining civilization are an attempt to prolong this state or mitigate any possible disastrous effects of collapse, right? But it's going to fall apart.
Of course,
and it's an old system that was constructed on scrolls by people writing with feathers that really had no idea what the future had in store.
Right.
They didn't know what the future had in store. They had no idea.
They would have been terrified by a toothbrush.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, certainly by a fucking airplane and cellular communication and this. We live in a world that requires a completely new set of rules and guidelines.